After Raeesah delivered her speech and in the course of the days that followed, I asked Raeesah to make her best efforts to contact the victim or to contact the individuals who brought the victim's case to her attention and to extend the necessary information to Minister of State for Home Affairs Desmond Tan, who had sought more details of the matter in Parliament. Initially, Raeesah stuck to her untruth in her communication with me. After being repeatedly pressed, a number of new facts and disturbing personal revelations were disclosed. She admitted this to the party leadership about a week after she had delivered her speech. Of immediate concern to me was the fact that Raeesah had not previously informed her family members of her sexual assault, which had traumatized her greatly. In my judgment, it was important that she did so before she could fully address the reasons behind her untruthful conduct in Parliament and to correct the record. Raeesah came down with an episode of shingles in September and did not attend Parliament that month. It was nonetheless made known to her before the parliamentary sitting in October that any parliamentary clarification on this matter was hers to make in her capacity as an elected member of Parliament.
The first time that I gave any sense that it was an untruth was on the 7th of August, and it was a short phone call, which then was followed by a meeting at Pritam Singh's house with the chair, Sylvia Lim, and vice chair, Faisal Manap. It was incredible disappointment. There was a lot of anger. But I think there was some compassion there as well. The reaction was that if I were not to be pressed, then the best thing to do would be to retain the narrative that I began in August. I have to say though that Pritam Singh's initial response was that I should go to the Committee of Privileges. But after discussions and me explaining the circumstances that led me to the information in the first place, that changed. The reason that I called him was because he was pushing for me to validate the information and verify it. And when I realized that I couldn't, that's when I gave him a call and told him why I couldn't, and subsequently we met in person. He came and spoke to me about the upcoming sitting. He actually did not ask me how I would respond. He just made that statement, that brief statement, and that was the end of the discussion.
So retain the narrative, there will be no judgment on you.
Yes.
8th of August, it's time-stamped 12:41 p.m., which I presume that's the time it was received.
Yeah.
Or sent. It says, "Hey guys, I just met with Pritam, Sylvia and Faisal and we spoke about the Muslim issues and the police accusation. I told them what I told you guys and they've agreed that the best thing to do is to take the information to the grave."
I'll have to be very frank and admit that I really think that I trusted their...
You trusted the Workers' Party leadership judgment.
Yeah.
But what was your view from this? What does take the information to the grave mean?
Don't tell anyone.
When questioned by the Minister for Home Affairs in Parliament on the 3rd of October, on the 4th of October, Raeesah repeated an untruth on the parliamentary record, which was wholly inconsistent with the revelations she had shared with the party leadership after the 3rd of August. Almost immediately after Parliament adjourned in October, Raeesah agreed with the party leadership that she had to set the record right forthwith. I shared with her that it was the correct thing to do. The next earliest opportunity to do so in Parliament was on the 1st of November, when the member made the personal explanation under Standing Order 25. That was a call that had to be made about what had been said against the police. Raeesah, I think, has apologized to the police force. I just met some members of the police who look after part of Aljun and Hougang town 1 or 2 weeks ago. I mean, we work very professionally with one another, but to the extent that this episode has cast some aspersions on them in any way, I apologize to the police, and this should not have happened.
It was a meeting in the LO office with Miss Sylvia Lim and Pritam Singh. We had a discussion around the possible police investigation, the possibility of me standing or me being heard at the Committee of Privileges, and that was the main gist of the discussion.
So what made you decide, or what made you discuss with Mr. Singh, and how did you all collectively decide not to reply to the police?
I think the decision was because there was no reason for me to have to go to the police station. I think it was a request, and that was what the decision was, that since it was a request, I would not have to go.
But to not even reply to the police? Was that something that Mr. Singh agreed with?
That was a
To ignore the police and to not even reply to the police?
That was the directive, yes.
Who was that directive from?
Party leadership.
Who would that be?
Sylvia Lim and Pritam Singh.
Not to reply to the police?
Yes.
Did they explain the reasons to you?
No, they did not. Yes, they did, but the reasons were very brief, and that was that they could not compel a Member of Parliament, or they could not force a Member of Parliament to visit the police.
You mentioned on 12 October, then the decision was taken to take this final approach.
Yes.
And just to make clear that the approach until that stage was that if you could keep on to the narrative, that would be something permissible. You will not be judged on that. And I guess as of 12 October, the sense was that it was no longer viable to maintain that narrative. Would that be correct?
I think the exact words were, there would be no judgment.
There'd be no judgment, meaning that if you had chosen to continue maintaining that narrative, they would not judge you.
Correct.
And they would respect your decision to go that path.
Correct.
But at no time there was an encouragement for you to clarify and to say that let's take this approach to tell the truth and so on.
So when did you actually make that decision?
On the
Was there a
12th.
date?
On the 12th
On the
itself.
12th itself.
Yeah. It was also during a meeting with Sylvia Lim and Pritam Singh.
Did you decide at the meeting, after the meeting, before the
We
meeting?
decided at the meeting.
The meeting was called by you, was called by Ms. Low, asking for a meeting with Mr. Pritam Singh.
It was called by Mr. Pritam Singh.
What time was that meeting?
It was in the morning.
I think it was important that she set the record right in Parliament and that she had the opportunity to do that first. Her mistake was something that she had to own up to and take responsibility for. Once that was done and the truth of the matter was established on the record, disciplinary action from a party perspective would follow, and that's what happened.
Did you have any inkling, any suggestion that you'll be disciplined in this way?
No, I did not.
The announcement of the formation of a disciplinary panel, a DP, you said earlier, surprised you. Can you describe your sense when you first found out about this?
I was shocked. I think that was my first reaction, that I was just shocked and surprised.
Why were you shocked and surprised?
Because it had not been discussed with me previously.